A lot of people think Washington is going to keep going.
Let's not get caught.
What are you talking about?
Let's keep going.
Off the proverbial fiscal cliff, it's caused a lot of confusion for many Americans and a whole lot of irritation for the business community. Richard Haas, the chair of the Las Cruces Chamber of Commerce, says it's not just about Republicans or Democrats.
It's both sides of the aisle. It's not one side or the other. It's they're both acting like children, and they need to grow up and get on with the business of the country.
The business community in Las Cruces needs some certainty, according to Haas.
There's a lot of frustration that you can't plan. I mean, if you knew that they were going to act in one direction, then you could plan accordingly. And businesses need to plan 90 days out, 6 months out. You can't, typically they don't turn on a dime.
Chris Erickson, economics professor at NMSU, agrees businesses want an answer, even if it's not the one they hope for.
The lack of certainty in of itself is a negative on the economy. And what we need, in my opinion, is to have the fiscal cliff fixed in Washington, D.C. by Congress and by the president as quickly as possible.
Erickson thinks the country needs to deal with the deficit.
The question is when and how dramatic do those changes have to be.
But he thinks slower is better than the proverbial cliff.
But that's not current law. Current law is for all these programs, all these tax programs to expire and for sequestering to begin at the same time. That $560 billion reduction in the deficit will almost inevitably throw the economy into recession.
He says New Mexico is particularly vulnerable to cuts at the federal level. Erickson estimates if the fiscal cliff goes into effect, it will cost New Mexicans about 20,000 jobs.
New Mexico is the 6th largest net recipient of federal funds. We receive about $12,000 per person in federal funding. That goes to salaries at Los Alamos, largest employer in the state, salaries at Sandia. It goes to fund research at NMSU.
He says all those programs, since they receive federal money, will be adversely affected. Some are calling this event the fiscal slope, since some changes take effect over all of 2013, but not Erickson.
I don't agree with that, because I think that we already are seeing the impact of the fiscal cliff as businesses begin to plan for potential adverse effects.
Politically, it's hard to compromise because neither side wants to look like the loser in the deal. But the real losers might just be American taxpayers, especially in states like New Mexico, where federal funding is high if that deal is not reached. In Las Cruces, I'm Sloan Patton for KRWG News.